This is your degenerate power hour, your late night golden shower. Too ill to be sick, so thick you can't split. That carnival spin with the rictus grin. I'm Joel, he's no show, and this is Vagrants and Vandals Radio.
Awkward.
Listen, you know.
Shots fired, BMO. Shots be fired, son. Where you be? Where you at?
You know what? I know it grinds his gears when he has to listen to these and he ain't on.
I'm sure it does. He's missing out. We're back home, the home base.
That's right.
The masturbatorium. We got semen seeping down the walls as we speak, brother. And you go, missing out? You're missing out on that.
You're not really making the case for being here.
Yeah, I guess not.
All right, let me touch on it really quickly before because I know some of our regular listeners might be saying, where's BMO been? All right. I'll make it real short and sweet. If the podcast doesn't get brought to BMO's literal doorstep, BMO finds it difficult to make time for the podcast.
That's the way the BMO rolls, man. He's a man of convenience.
Despite the fact that he's constantly blowing up my phone, when we doing the podcast, when we doing the podcast, and then bitching about every episode that Stu or anyone else might be on that isn't him and how they're not funny and blah, 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 blah. Yeah. And he'll always come to me with these anecdotal examples like, I was talking to so-and-so. I'm like, oh, so-and-so, that's your buddy. Puffing up your ego. I'm like, what an unbiased source.
Hey, that is he. You know what? From what I'm told, he conducts a very fair and balanced poll when he takes those assessments.
He, and I'm going to be critical of him. Partly, I'm goofing around. And I'll be fair. We couldn't do it today because April's been sick. I believe COVID's running around, so it wouldn't have worked for this particular time anyways. But he and I had this exchange. So the other day, I've mentioned before, we have a group chat with me, him, Andrew, and Stu. And, Brandon has his nightly alcohol, weed, whatever, gets drunk and high. And a lot of times, I'll just let what he says roll off my back.
I think he calls that BMO time.
Yeah, and it apparently happens every night after 3 p.m. until midnight. So he a lot of times he does his little insults and I just let it roll off my back. So I'm like, well, it's Brandon. But the other day he got on my nerves to the point where I literally ended my participation in the group chat that night by saying something to the effect of I don't know, like, believe what you want, I'm done with this bullshit. And then I didn't interact with the group chat for about 2 or 3 days.
Oh, and did he pick up on that?
I don't know.
He didn't address it at all.
It never came up again. So then, was it yesterday? 2 days ago, I get a hold of him directly. I'm like, what's your schedule like? Because we got the holiday weekend right now, and that's when he tells me like, well, April's sick. Which, okay, you can't help that. But I was kind of like, what are you even complaining about then? Like, because he got in our group chat and he was going, remember when we used to have a show every week, the good old days? And then I get a hold of him. He's like, oh, I can't really do the show. Like, okay.
I think a lot of this when he's talking his smack is probably when he's a bit inebriated.
Yeah, but that's...
has a tendency to, to heighten emotions and, I think that might be what's going on there.
So I wanted to play something really quick and then we can move on from this topic. Okay, so we have that whole discussion. Okay, April 6th. So I'm like, all right, well, I say to him, like, maybe I'll see if Jason wants to do one this weekend. We can do a call-in segment with you, blah, blah, blah. Full disclosure, any time that the podcast hasn't been at Brandon's place, at the Honey How.
The Honey How, hi.
I've made an effort to say to him, like, hey, we'll do a call-in segment or whatever.
Right.
Because I don't want him to feel like he's just being disincluded, because it's not the case. This is what he tells me.
Uh-oh.
This is what he tells me.
Uh-oh.
Listen to this.
Let's hear it.
Listen to this.
Also, side note, I'm not going to be another call-in fucking guest, dude. I'm a fucking co-host. I don't like how my title's been wavered. So yeah, if I'm not going to be on, I'm not doing a call on.
Oh.
It's silly. It doesn't even resonate well. It sounds shitty every time. So, hey.
Fucking diva. He cares about the quality of his voice.
I listened to that and I'm like,
oh man,
you gotta be kidding me. So I say to him, I said, that's some team player shit right there. And he says, LMAO, hey bro, I can't be on once every 4 episodes. Doesn't really work.
Yeah, but
But then here's my response to that.
Yeah, I don't prefer to have it be that way either. But, in situations where you're not able or willing to travel, it comes down to we either just don't do an episode and then nothing gets put out, which you're also bitching about, or it's I cobble together what I can and we have you call in, to alleviate the FOMO. So, pick your poison.
And that was pretty much the gist of it. We may have gone back and forth a little bit, but then we just, I think we start kicking around ideas. And he was sober in one of the. I can always tell immediately when he's sober or he's drunk.
Oh, sure. It's like whenever you pick up a phone call from dad, and you can tell. I mean, literally, I don't even need the first word. I can just tell by how much silence there is in the beginning, or maybe even the first syllable that starts to form off his lips, whether or not I want to be on the phone call.
Yeah. Yeah, so it was just when for those of you that don't know, when Brandon's drunk or high, he can be amongst the most obnoxious people on the planet. He may be, like, in my personal life, he may be the most obnoxious human being, like when he's drunk or high, because there's no reasoning with him. He thinks he's the funniest person on the planet. He believes wholeheartedly everything he's saying, no matter how absurd it is, and there's no amount of evidence that you can present to him that will get him to change his mind.
Being somebody that has been accused on a number of occasions of being obnoxiously drunk to the point of attacking friends and...
Did you say accused? Because you weren't accused, it was fact.
It was never proven in a court of law, so I'm still sticking with an accusation there, going purely by the legal sense. I can testify to that. I mean, I think that's part of a little kinship me and BMO have. But it's a destructive kind of kinship there in terms of mutually shared alteration of our mind to where we're just reduced to our base levels. Mm-hmm. But you reach a point where it's not functional.
Well, and don't get me wrong, anyone listening, I typically this is how Brandon and I have operated for years. I mean, we grew up together. We've always kind of been like thick as thieves. We have literally stolen together. But every once in a while, he gets on my goddamn nerves.
What a thing to brag about.
Because he's completely incorrigible. So I went for a couple... I didn't talk to him because I was like, fuck this motherfucker. And when I'm that angry, I'm like, fuck him. I'm like, I'm done with him. We ain't going to do the podcast anymore. But then after a couple days, I messaged him. I'm like, all right, so you want to get together this weekend? And then everything's, as it was. So
that's the way it is, man.
We
love the BMO. Yeah. Hi. So to point out, even in a non-altered state, I'll recount a story that kind of exhibits this, I believe. So Brandon, this was the dawn of cell phone, not the dawn, but when we first had access to cell phones and stuff. Brandon would, I don't know, he'd be at work or whatever, and he just can't have a moment of just quiet. I think he would have to call people. So, for instance, this was a conversation I had with Brandon. He calls me, my phone rings. I say, hello. He goes, hey, what's going on? And I said, I'm just sitting here. I don't know what I was doing. This is like 20 years ago, watching a movie, whatever, reading a book. And he goes, oh, okay. And he goes, well, if you're not going to say anything, I guess I'll let you go. I'm like, you called me, motherfucker. He acts like I called him and had nothing to bring up when he, in fact, called me.
So
that is
well, that latest exchange with him, it's interesting you brought up your own drunkenness, because that exchange a couple of days ago got me to thinking. I'm like, Jason had the Borthazor alter ego.
Yes,
I'm like, we need something for BMO when he's in his states, which again is pretty much every day. But
is it a state at that point then? It's emergence. It's this. So he's got like a symbiotic relationship with it.
So for those of you missing yourself some BMO,
I'm missing BMO. I love BMO on there. You know, when you can tell when he's around, when he hits about 7-8 beers, it gets a little, you know, he gets a little repetitive, a little too sloppy.
Well, and that's the thing with him. It's like he, the reason I started doing a podcast with Brandon is because we can sit there and have conversations with ease, and we play off of each other very well. Mm-hmm. But my God, when he gets that deep, again, like, yeah, he's the most obnoxious person I've ever met, and you just kind of like, Brandon is, when you talk about people who, you know, when you use that phrase, what you see is what you get. Mm-hmm. Ultimate example, his behavior is incorrigible. He will not curb his behavior for anyone, for any reason. He doesn't care. And working with someone like that can be very frustrating.
So I just thought of another example. And this might have been talked about one of the times I was on. If it is, just stop me. But did I ever tell you the story on air here about the piranha in the apartment when we shared an apartment?
I don't recall you guys having a piranha.
Yeah, well, we had a piranha. You might even have more than one. I don't recall. But anyways, it was Brandon's tank. He had this tank, and he wanted this piranha, so he got this piranha. I don't remember the piranha's name. It's not relevant. And, you know, Brandon loved this piranha. That was his pet, you know. He'd bring him home, and he'd actually do even things that I was not cool with. Like, he'd buy, you know, those little aquarium frogs to feed to the piranha, which I was like, that's, you know, I mean, I understand it's a piranha. You feed it typically mini goldfish or like little guppies and stuff like that. That's what it eats. It's a predator. I get it. But
you prefer to see a fish slaughtered to a frog.
I mean, I don't know. I just think there's like a level of, you know, like frogs a little bit higher up on the level in my mind.
Did you think he did it because he enjoyed watching the piranha destroy the frog?
Oh, without a doubt. And the thing, you know, it swims around, one leg's missing, and it's just like, you know, the fish, they die quickly. It also got to the point where he was buying just not like regular feeder fish. He would buy like fancy goldfish with the big bubbles on their face. And so in those bubbles, I mean, I'm not an expert, but I believe they help with their balance, with their, how they're swimming and stuff in the water. Yeah. So this piranha would attack one side. So then the fish is like lopsided and it's floating because it's got this big bubble on the one side. It was just, I don't know. But this is eminent. This is not exact. But my point in illustrating that is that he had great enthusiasm with this tank, we'll say. So as time went on, I just noticed like he wasn't taking care of the tank, and
naturally,
there became there was like a fungus that was growing in there, or some type of algae. It was like red though. So specifically, I don't remember if him or I called up the store and was explaining to them what was going on, and they said, oh, you know, that's dangerous. It will kill your fish, and, you know, you need to immediately completely decontaminate that tank, get it all clean and everything like that. So day goes by, Brandon hasn't done it. 2 days go by, Brandon hasn't done it. It was like a week goes by, and I'm like, Brandon, I thought you told me that guy said that will immediately kill that fish. You got to take care of it. He's like, yeah, he did say that. I said, aren't you concerned about it? He said, yeah, I love I love him, man. He's part of the family.
I'd love to see him rip apart other animals.
He's a part of the fam. I said, okay, so when do you plan on doing this? He's like, I'm not kidding, Joel. This is the conversation I have with him. He goes, I don't think I'm going to.
He had his run.
And I go, well, what do you, I was like dumbfounded. I go, you just got done explaining to me how much you do care about this thing. So what do you mean you're not going to? He's like, well, I'm not going to because I know eventually if I don't do it, you will do it.
Yeah.
This is exactly, this is what I'm talking about. The man, the myth, the legend that is BMO that we're dealing with, and the thought process that goes into it. And motherfucker was right.
I was going to say, I finished the story.
Because I ended up cleaning the goddamn fucking tank probably another 2 days later. Like, but it's just like, it can be so infuriating sometimes. Like, oh my God.
Goes to the tank. I'm glad you're still with us, fam. So just to clear things up for all of you, BMO has not been exiled. We're not at odds. No. This is pretty much just our relationship over the years. He would have been on this episode had April or himself not been sick.
We love the BMO. Actually, I was thinking about reaching out to him because I was told that he had a COVID really bad. I was told, but
who told you this?
Mom told me.
Okay, of
that.
course.
I
So
know
listen to
things
this.
get misinterpreted through the grapevine.
So through the course of talking to him about setting up the next episode. He tells me, okay, April's got COVID. Then he's like, hey, I heard Jason had COVID. I heard your mom had COVID. Like, everyone's got COVID. And I'm like, what the fuck? And I know he's heard this from Aunt Lori.
Yeah.
So I'm just like, well, the sourcing, I question.
Yeah, and so, I mean, I probably about 2.5 going on 3 weeks ago, I did have an upper respiratory infection on the week I was off. Now, could it have been COVID? It certainly could have been COVID. I have no idea, but I never had a fever. There was really I wasn't going to run to a store and pay $30 for a test because there was really no reason to. I wasn't going to be doing anything differently than if I had that knowledge because I didn't have to go back to work for a while. And even if I had to go back to work, at work now, once you're confirmed to have COVID, 5 days after your symptoms started, they expect you to be back to work. So it's kind of, and Madison did have confirmed COVID about a week and a half ago, but no, it wasn't, it's not like we had a house of sickness.
Yeah. It's popping off. So
it definitely is.
Listeners, don't fear. BMO will be back on the podcast.
Yeah, I miss the BMO, man, I miss him.
I mean, I miss sitting down with him too, but like, again, it can't be a one-sided relationship where it's like, well, like he's sitting there like a princess on a throne. Like if you can't bring it to me every time, like, well, dude.
Does it occur to you that he's doing exactly with you as he did with me with the piranha?
This is the piranha paradox.
That's exactly what he's doing. He just knows. He's like...
he even said in that
at some point, you got to question, who's the fucking fool here?
He gets so petty. He even said he was going on like railing at Stu, and he was like, "No, it's fine. You two motherfuckers go on ahead and have your own funny podcast. That's fine." And I'm like,
he does.
Like, you are so petty and insecure. Like, my God.
Well, but he acts, I don't know. Another thing is he acts like you said, he was comparing listens to like the ones that he's on.
Yeah.
And it's a matter of like, it's not a secret. There's not a huge viewership, listening viewership going on here.
It's a matter of tens.
We enjoy doing this, so if it were to ever eventually take off, so be it. But, you would think by him saying that there was a matter of hundreds of thousands of views. Literally talking about like 5, 8 views.
You ain't moving the needle, bringing in the money.
He's like, I'm the one holding this ship down.
All right. So, yeah, let's move on from the BMO rant there.
Okay.
It's been a while since you've been on the podcast.
It has.
I was looking back at the episodes. It was episode 7 was the last time we were here in the masturbatorium.
What number are you on to now?
27, I think.
Ooh,
27.
shit. Yeah, no, it has. It was back in the summer that you guys were here.
Yeah, 6 months ago. So, Jason's kind of our go-to alien man. You got some updates.
Well,
there's been UFO, UAP, whatever they're calling it in the news lately.
And this is where I'm going to call Joel out. Motherfucker, he's a podcast this. He wants to have material for the pad. I have been sending him like material videos left and right. Yeah. And he gets here and I ask him.
Left and right.
Hey,
there's been a handful.
There's probably been 3 or 4.
Okay.
Still.
So that more of a handful than left and right.
How many of those have you watched over the last few months?
I don't think I've watched any of them.
Exactly.
I'm busy, man. Usually send them when I'm at work.
This is the conundrum I'm in that blows my fucking mind. Is like I'm literally in my reality right now. Like there is human beings are being contacted by non-human intelligence. That is the reality I'm coping with right now, and I can't even get somebody who's interested in the topic to like invest to look into it.
But
let alone these people that just go about their day and have no clue about fucking nothing.
Okay, but us humans still got to go to work and pay our bills and eat and wipe our asses.
I don't do any of that stuff.
I'm not saying you don't.
I do all. Do you need to see my asshole right now?
No, I don't.
You took a little bit too long to answer that question. There was a bit too much of a pause to answer that. But yes, I have. I was telling Joel, he was laughing at me. I said I daily do go to Google and I do type UFO, hit news to see what news articles are coming up on today. I go to Twitter, which I recently just started, but I don't know. I got to figure out my account. I can't even. I have nothing on there, and I don't even know my name on there. So don't even ask. But I basically go on there to be able to search for other people and some of the people that are involved in.
I'm banned from the platform. So
how'd you get banned from? I thought no one gets banned, and Trump is back on. How are you banned?
Good question.
Isn't Alex Jones? Jones is back on.
It is probably the perfect distillation of the difference between being a known person, you be able to say whatever you want, and because like, did I do something worse than incite an insurrection? An insurrection? Did I incite an erection at the Capitol? But I'm banned because I'm a nobody. I got banned back when it was still Twitter for repeatedly trolling right-wing figures.
Oh, you got banned back when it was Twitter?
I've been banned for about 3 years now. Yeah.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Well, so are you permanently banned, or how does that work?
Okay. Well, all I know is this.
I mean, like, seriously.
They put me in Twitter jail a few times, and each time it gets progressively longer.
Okay.
And then the final time they put me in, they were like, your account is permanently banned. You may not create another account, blah, blah, blah. And every term they could, they let me know that they don't want me on the platform.
So, so basically, you sign up through an email address, if I remember right.
Yeah.
So you would just have to get another email address,
possibly, unless they have some other way to cross-reference who you are.
Jesus,
like if I were to use obviously like a similar handle or my real name.
They literally, somebody is making a salary just to make sure that you're not somehow finding your way back onto Twitter.
Well, and if it did so, and that just I don't want to go too far into this, but if you ever want to know how disingenuous the argument from the right is over their free speech rights being infringed upon, look no further than Elon Musk's dumpster fire of X. Because since he took over, I appealed it, and nothing happened.
And he's still...
So they're full of shit.
Yeah. Elon, are you out there? Are you listening? Are you one... okay, yeah. If BMO was on, he'd be listening, but he's not.
Elon was like, wait, is this an episode with BMO or not? Not interested.
Yeah. So, but yeah, there's been plenty. I mean, almost on a weekly basis, sometimes daily basis, news stories coming out, high-level people that are coming forward, high up in the intelligence agencies, high up in the military that are now coming forward, that are retired. That's usually the big thing, is that they're retired because they'll face reprisals if they come forward otherwise. But some of the bigger things, so I can't remember, when was the last time you guys were here? Did they have the congressional...
June.
It was in June.
Some of those hearings were going on at the time.
So the hearings took place, I believe, in the later end of June. So we knew about them, though.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So the hearings had happened. We had 3 people, I think it was 3, came up and gave testimony. Grush, who is a former intelligence officer, was probably the one who everyone's kind of... He's the one making the claims of the U.S. government, without a doubt, having crash retrieval operations that have been going on for the better part of 80 years at this point. The other 2 were pilots who have personally, the one was involved in the Tic Tac incident and was in the fighter jet while, and can verify all this information. But so those went on. There was a lot of interest. So a lot of the people come forward and they're complaining that this Grush, none of the information he is giving is firsthand account information. A lot of it's information that he came across in his job in investigating some of these reports as part of the, I don't know if it was Arrow or which program. They make this so hard to follow because they use all these anagrams, and they switch them. Like the names change seemingly every year, every other year to some other thing. But anyways, he came across a lot of this information while he was investigating this. So most of the information he has is not first person, is not from his own eyes. It's stuff that was told to him. It's stuff that he'd read from source documents, though, that are part of the government record. He also, though, does have some firsthand...
Acronyms, what you meant.
What?
Not anagram.
Oh, yeah, because anagram's backwards, right? Or
I believe anagram is
I can't believe
a word.
I said, how many sentences? So that whole time this motherfucker's just been sitting there trying to figure out what word it actually was, not listening to a goddamn thing I was saying.
An anagram, I believe, it's a word
spelled the same backwards and forward.
Is that what it is, or is it a word that it's a word, but if you rearrange the letters, it become another word? I can't remember, but you're definitely thinking of acronym.
Yeah, I was thinking of acronym for sure. Now, I was on a roll. Now I'm completely flustered.
That's why I let you go as long as you did, because I didn't have the answer anyway. So I thought, well, why interrupt when I don't have the answer?
So, anyways, the big thing, he does claim to have information of specifically addresses, like where some of these craft materials, whatever have you, are located at.
And when's he going to release it?
So that's the thing. He's doing everything by the book. First of all, like he says, I have no interest in going to jail.
Sure.
The reason he came forward is the ultimate reason was because his life was being threatened. He hasn't dictated yet what specifically the threat was or how he knew of the threat, because it's currently being investigated still. But this was basically an insurance policy for him.
Okay.
But then also he feels, like we have a right to know. But he's a very intelligent person. He is on the spectrum, like the autism spectrum, but he's very,
got a touch of the tism.
I always hate this, high functioning, implies like, but he's on the high functioning end of the spectrum of autism. So it's interesting, and which kind of clarifies for me some of the things when I was watching his initial videos that kind of comes across a little bit, kind of just like I'm like putting myself in his position. If I was announcing these things, I'd be a little bit more like I would reflect upon them a little bit differently, I guess. But so yeah, his life was threatened. But anyways, they had this hearing. They wanted to get a SCIF, which is like basically it's another thing. What is, Joel?
Acronym.
There we go, an acronym. It stands for like it's basically a room that's designed so that you can share people who are cleared top secret and whatever clearance level information that you have and documents and stuff. They were denied. They were denied that room. I don't know the process and how that was denied. I'm assuming the intelligence agency has part to play in that.
So the point of a SCIF room is that nobody can bug it.
So basically, yeah, I think everybody, like electronics could work in there, I assume.
Okay.
It's basically a secured area that is cleared. Oh, mom's calling in through my phone, but all right, we'll ignore that. But anyways, that did not happen. Since that time, there's a core group of senators, both Republican and Democrat, that are interested in this, and some of them are Matt Gaetz. Can't stand Mr. Potato Head. I think he's a big blowhard, and he's basically working for a career after his,
many of them are.
He's working for his Fox News program after he gets kicked out of office or whatever. But whatever. He's if he's a puppet, then he can be a useful puppet in certain things. And so, but he's very interested in this for one reason or another. But even
he needs a new audience to sex traffic those girls.
I knew
too.
it was going somewhere about underage pussy. I knew that's where you were going.
He's like, maybe those aliens are interested.
Joel, any moment he gets, he goes straight to underage pussy.
Listen, that's for you,
BMO. That's for you.
Zing. Perpetuated by BMO.
Okay, so you say.
So I say it's basic math.
Right.
I got dates and times. Okay.
But
No. Let's finish this out.
Oh no, you're distracting me.
You're the one. You want to bring it up.
Dates and times.
You meet someone when they're on the cusp of being 19 years old, and all of a sudden you're a predator.
Yeah. You've been grooming them for a couple of years.
Met her at 8, or she was 18 going on 19.
Yeah, and how old were you?
At that time, I would have been 33.
Oh, pardon me, sir. Pardon me. How dare I question your character?
Listen, this is what we call an age gap relationship.
I mean, there's a legality age for a reason, I guess, right?
That's right. And I was on the right side of it.
He's on the
so
right
you got
side
nothing
of it.
on me, Johnny Law.
Yeah, now if you'd been down a few southern states, you'd be even more on the right side of it a couple of years before that.
Yeah, they'd be like, boy, what you waiting so long for?
Yeah, they're like, that thing's going to dry up by the time you get to it, boy. Anyways, back to the topic at hand.
Yes.
Where was it going? So even like AOC, what's her, I don't even know her real name anymore. Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez.
Yeah.
Thank you. Everyone says AOC now. So I hate medical field. They do this too. They have all these abbreviations and acronyms. Anyways, so that happened back during the summer. The mainstream media was, I hate using that term too, that's another right-wing thing. The mainstream media.
Well, but here's the thing.
The major news outlets,
sure.
let's say.
And when they say mainstream media, it always amuses me because what they mean is CNN and NBC, MSNBC. Hilariously, they don't include Fox News, which is absolutely part of the mainstream media.
Fox News is the biggest, I believe, viewership-wise.
Yes.
So, I mean, what is more mainstream than Fox News?
Yeah, define mainstream for me. That's what it comes to.
But so anyways, they started covering a little bit of this because, of course, it was congressional hearings, but not to the level you would think of. So, but if you were watching the nightly news, they probably had a story about it. But still, they're taking it a little more seriously, but they still can't get through a goddamn story without like playing the X-Files theme or just basically, you know, and that's a part of the argument that a lot of these people that are coming forward now, people are interviewing them saying, well, how has this been covered up and blah, blah, blah. And they say it really hasn't. If you think about it, there's been leaks. I mean, throughout the decades, people coming forward claiming they've been working on this, and there's been investigations into those people, and yeah, they find discrepancies sometimes, but that's with any human being. Sure. You know, it's like we talked about Bob Lazar, and there's things that he had said or whatever that they've later proven, well, this can't possibly be true. But there's other things like where they claimed he never worked for one of the places he did. Mm-hmm. They even called the HR there. No, we have no record of him. Well, then lo and behold, they pull up a newspaper, a company newspaper with him in it, and stating he's an employee. They claim he didn't go to the colleges he went to. They pull up records, phone directories. He's listed in them. So, I mean, that tells you there is an active element of it. But in other ways, they make you seem crazy. Like they've stigmatized it so much to where it's like people don't want to talk about it. Even though when they poll Americans, the vast majority of people believe in these things. They do believe, or they even have experiences. Mm-hmm. There's a ton of people, like when you start openly talking about it, they'll come forward and they'll say like, yeah, I have, you know, but they just stigmatize it so much. So, but anyways, going forward, there's been so much going on, but the latest things was there's a couple different legislation acts that were trying to be enacted to kind of help basically start the ball on what we would call UFO disclosure, disclosing what the government knows, how long it's known it, through legislation. So I know Chuck Schumer had an amendment that he was putting on for the defense authorization bill, I believe, for the year. Mm-hmm. So I'm just going to go ahead. I got a couple little news stories here, but I'm going to read them. They're quick. It won't be real long. So this first one comes from News Nation, which is News Nation is the way News Nation came known to me is through the UFO story, because they're, I would say, the biggest media house that's actively covering the story, like routinely covering it. Not as much as I like, because I actually started listening to News Nation now and thinking that pretty much every story is going to be about this, and it's not. It's pretty much just dry regular news. But anyways.
And the current employer of Chris Cuomo,
yes,
formerly of CNN, who we'll talk about him a little bit later.
Joel's a big fan of Chris Cuomo and Tourette's. All right, so let me read this article to you. So it says, lawmakers have been on a quest to learn more information about an alleged secret UFO crash retrieval program, but the effort seems to have hit major turbulence. Key portions of an unprecedented measure to disclose classified government records relating to unidentified anomalous phenomena, or UAPs, have been stripped from the annual defense spending bill unveiled Wednesday night. The UAP measure was sponsored by Senate Majority Leader Chuck Schumer and Republican Senator Mike Rounds of South Dakota, and it would disclose records on technologies of unknown origin in non-human intelligence. That last part's in quotations. That's that's the wording actually in there. Right. Because another one of these games that gets played is word games. Like you'll say the term extraterrestrial and we don't know that it's not from here. So that's why they're being very specific with their words. Sure. So anyways, it says, however, the measure doesn't go nearly as far as Schumer intended. He blamed House Republicans for fighting back against his efforts for more transparency. The measure I championed with Senator Rounds would create a board, just like we did with the JFK assassination records, to work through the declassification of many government records on UAPs. This model's been a terrific success for decades, Schumer said. It should be used again with UAPs, but once again, House Republicans are ready to kill this bipartisan provision. Two key pieces of his measure were ultimately stripped out, per News Nation sources, after influence from the House Intelligence Committee. One provision would have created a 10-person panel, each person chosen by the president, to sort through which records would immediately be disclosed. The second would have given the government full possession of all recovered, quote, non-human technology currently kept by private entities like defense contractors. The risk for confusion and misinformation is high if the government isn't willing to be transparent, Schumer said. Sources have been telling News Nation for weeks these pieces of the bill were at risk of being cut. A bipartisan group of House members have raised alarm bells, saying even their efforts as sitting lawmakers to get access to UAP information were being stonewalled. Quote, if none of this exists, that this is all false, why at every turn are there people trying to stop the transparency in the disclosure, said Representative Jared Moskowitz, a Democrat from Florida. The pushback to disclosure, according to the bill itself, is national security. It now includes a whole list of exemptions for disclosing UAP records, including if the records threaten national defense, compromise national intelligence, threaten sources and methods of intel gathering, or compromise any federal agent. Those lists of exemptions, sources say, are incredibly broad and may provide cover to block disclosure of meaningful revelations. So, two of the prominent people that were blocking this legislation are two people that come from districts that house actually Wright-Patterson Air Force Base, which is allegedly, and a lot of these people that come forward say that some of this, whether it be craft, whether it just be objects, are kept there. So this next article it's a Newsweek article. I'm going to quickly read through parts of it. It says here, this week, former Fox News host Tucker Carlson said on his show on X, formerly Twitter, that Congressman Mike Rogers of Alabama, who is the chairman of the House Armed Services Committee, and Congressman Mike Turner of Ohio, who is chairman of the House Intel Committee, both of these men have been instructed to violate in letter and in spirit federal law and to hide the truth about UFOs. Carlson, who was speaking to Tennessee Republican Representative Tim Burchett, later mentioned the now Speaker of the House, Mike Johnson, and Mitch McConnell among the group that may shut it down. While Burchett did not mention any congressional members by name, he said would be talking, that's phrased wrongly, he said would be talking to the House Speaker to tell him, quote, how important the Schumer Amendment, is to this community and to transparency. Newsweek has contacted a media representative for Burchett via email for comment. Says Burchett is a member of the House Oversight Committee who has held hearings on UAPs this year. He has called for Congress to have greater access to classified documents in support of its own investigations around UAP transparency. So, yeah, we got that. That's happened. So, I mean, there is legislation in the bill, though, that does speak to, quote, non-human intelligence, non-human technologies, but it's been vastly watered down. So, essentially, what would have happened if this had passed as written would be, again, they would set this panel up and they would discuss about disclosing immediately of records that were over a certain amount of, age-wise instance. So, in instance, anything pertaining to Roswell, stuff like that would have immediately been released.
But it's getting shut down by Mitch the Glitch. And I don't even know exactly how this. It's not like they take a vote. I don't know how it works in these committees, but that's, I guess, in the Intelligence Committee, that's where these got shat down on. And these two guys, so it just so happens that their biggest donors are Wright-Patterson Air Force Base. Sure.
So it's
no surprise there. They're puppets of whoever fund their campaign.
It's just it's so discouraging, and it's just so maddening because it's still, I feel like this is a story of the, utmost importance. Again, what it is exactly, I don't know. But there's people increasingly. So now a lot of the people inside are talking about, they've been talking for a while about what they call basically not a controlled disclosure, basically like a chaotic disclosure, which would be people just coming forth and spilling things. Mm-hmm. So it's kind of dangerous because David Grush, he says, he considers himself a patriot, and he realizes, he says, nuclear weapons, the information pertaining to how to make those are classified. It's classified information. Nuclear fusion, nuclear fission, and nuclear energy. That's not classified. You can go to school and study that.
Right.
So the same thing should apply here. The fact that we, are in contact or through whatever means with some kind of non-human intelligence, that should not be classified. That should be known. And the fact that it's not is the greatest theft from humanity. Not just the American people, but the American people, our money is going to support this shit. It's like the Pentagon's never, it hasn't, I can't remember how many decades, half of their budget's unaccounted for. Where do you think it goes to?
Wow.
It goes to a lot of these special access programs. It goes to a lot of black projects. Like, there's just no oversight whatsoever. So who does run this? And I don't want to sound, like, Trump and the deep state, but they're
please don't.
No, I won't. I won't. But to a certain level, there are people that are not elected that do have control of this information, this technology. And it's damn time that this stops. And a lot of the people on the inside, they're talking now that the process for basically, a catastrophic disclosure will start to happen. There's, the cat's out of the bag. There's too much that's been admitted at this point. They can no longer flat out deny the reality of this. And so we'll see going forward what's going to be happening. I mean, they have people at the top of their minds. There's one of the videos I sent you, Dr. What's his name? Dr. Gary Nolan. He's like one of the top world premier immunologists. I think he works out of Harvard University. He's leads the program there. He's one of these who's like been looking into this. He's analyzed materials that have supposedly come from UFOs or were left as like a residue from a UFO and stuff like that. And he's demonstrating that some of these are elements that are found in our nature, but they would not be found naturally in our environment in the way in which they're constructed.
Right.
They're atomic, and this, again, explain this a million times, is well beyond my understanding of science and physics and everything, which I wish it wasn't, but it's not the brain I was given. But the way they're crafted, almost as if by atom, the atomic layering it cannot naturally occur on this earth. So, and this is a guy, like he said, he's like, and he's in communication with people who directly say they've worked with this material, worked on full crafts, and everything else. So I just wish the public in general was more informed about this. And it just seems like people are like, I don't even know if people give a fuck. I really don't. Like, our society is so fucked up anymore. And just, like I was telling you about watching these, I'll wake up in the morning, I go and I take my deuce and I'm sitting there. I've one time found an hour later, I'm still sitting there watching fucking videos on Karens.
Yeah.
There's something, it's highly entertaining, don't get me wrong, but there's something incredibly addictive to our cell phones.
Oh, yeah.
And, don't get me wrong, the same way I also found out about a lot of this stuff through things like that. But I don't know what it is about our society, and I'm not one of these, I'm getting older now. I'm 42. Late happy birthday to myself, pat. But, I do feel like, I'm becoming like, you fucking kids these days. I work with a lot of people largely in their 20s, late 20s. So it's just like nobody, I don't know, like they just don't, it's like there's like an immediacy of like what's going on in front of me right now. Okay. And then I even notice it with myself. I think back about things that went on like a year and a half ago, and I'm like, oh shit. Yeah, that's right. That's right. We did. The U.S. government did shoot down 3 fucking what they called UAP.
Yeah.
Never disclosed what they were. Said they were initially one of the objects. A story was coming out that the pilot said it interfered and jammed his radar and stuff. And then the government claims it was never able to identify any of it. It was never able to get the wreckage. Who believes that shit? Like they haven't released any of the any of the optic information, no camera information, no infrared, nothing. Now, they have that. Why? You know what I mean? But like I was thinking that the other day, I'm like, I completely forgot about it. And that was like a year and a half ago at most. Yeah, there's something going on, man. I
would rather the government, other than just saying things like the usual smoke screens they put up, I would rather they say the reasons they aren't disclosing it is because, well, we're not sure the public can handle it. We think it's a national security threat.
So, and there's been a lot of talk about this too. Some of the people on the inside, I guess a lot of it is, there's been a lot of illegal things done, like literally laws violated. that would open up a lot of people and a lot of entities, a lot of possibly even private sector businesses to laws that were violated. You know, I mean, also another, I think one of the biggest ones is, I mean, you think of it, any kind of institution, government institution, is the primary function of it is to protect its people, right? I mean, that's at a basic level.
Yeah.
Provide services that enrich the lives and, you know, protect ultimately your life. Well, if the government comes forward and admits we're not at the top of the food chain, like there's something here
Right.
that has technology that we don't fucking understand.
But they seem to be leaving us alone, so...
Well, and that's the thing. Like, if they were here to destroy it, I mean, like, it would have happened. But it basically, your government has to admit, like, we can't protect you. If these things wanted, or if they were aggressive or whatever, and there's been some reports that have come out different places around the world that there have been, like, incidents, whether they were directly attacked or whether it's just coming into contact with this phenomenon, what that does to a human body. But they would have to admit, like, we can't, we don't, first of all, don't control our skies, and we can't fully protect you. I think that's the bigger thing. Another thing is also, of course, like the religious question. A lot of which the more I get into this, the more I'm starting to kind of blows my mind is that the more I'm looking into this and reading about it and hearing these top level physicists and stuff talk about it, the more it kind of doesn't make me, I don't like saying religious. I'm not religious at all, but there is definitely like almost like a spiritual element to this. Like it seems to, like, a lot of there is an author. Oh, I wish I would have pulled her up now. Anyway, she wrote a book. I think it's called American Cosmic.
She got an OnlyFans.
Are you fucking with me right now? Dude. My God. Does she got an OnlyFans? I don't even know what that is.
The stunned look in pause was way longer than I expected.
I was pausing for emphasis. But anyways, she's a religious studies professor. She's at the top of her field too. I can't remember what university she's out of, but she's also another one. They have this thing called the Soul Foundation, where a lot of these people are coming together and they're coming up with ideas and, like, you know, they're writing research papers and they're starting to formulate, how can we study this, you know, right now, not having access to what the government has access to, but what can we do? There are things that we can do. So, but one thing she did, and she got interested in, she was going back to a lot of, like, source documents. She became very interested in, I can't think of the term they use for it, but basically when people that were later sainted, they would go into these fits, basically, where they would claim that they were in communication with angels and, you know, whatever, devils and demons, blah, blah, blah. A lot of it, the descriptions that they would give were pretty much like the descriptions people give when they're in contact, they see a UFO, or when they come in contact with some beings. The description of a light in the sky. You know, the terminology's changed. They might have described it as a shield. Instead, we say a saucer. They might have described it as, you know, a flaming bush.
And you're talking about things hundreds and maybe even
thousands of years.
Ago.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Going back hundreds, thousands of years. So I haven't read her book. I'm working on getting a copy. I've been getting collections of books going here. But there's just people at the top of their field that are looking to this. And I don't understand the religious thing. To me, this could be validation. You know what I mean? I mean, when you think of it, literally, what is religion? Pretty much all religions have in common that there's some greater force, some entity that gave life to humanity, right?
Sure, but...
Well,
they've all created their own very specific fictions at this point.
That's the thing.
That they would never accept this.
That's the thing, is that they've all created their own, you know, like, well, maybe that's your God, but that's not, you know what I mean?
Well,
so,
and then if let's look at and they all have their institutions that run the show, such as the Vatican, that have a financial interest in continuing those stories.
Well, the Vatican has actually came out and said that if the confirmation of intelligent life elsewhere does not contradict their beliefs, they said that.
Of course, that's what they say.
What was the quote? Yeah, what are they going to say? But what was the quote was
We're
something.
Done.
just something to the fact of God's creations. I don't know if no bounds or are many or something to that extent.
And
but
some poor sucker had to like go into like the Pope's chamber and like, listen, this stuff about aliens ain't going away. We need to get in front of it. We need to have a PR response, and that's what they came up with.
Who knows? But another argument is that they argue that markets would collapse, society would collapse. So if and I initially kind of thought, okay, there might be some legitimacy to this, but is it really though? Because most of us already believe it anyways. I mean, when people are polled, but I guess believing it and then having it confirmed by an authority figure, maybe that's a completely different thing. But is it really though? I mean, look at the last election. People believe whatever the fuck they want to believe. They don't give a
regardless
shit.
Of evidence.
There is in a lot of ways, we live in a post-truth world, like post-fact world. What was alternative facts?
You're starting to sound like if Trump just tweaked his campaign promises from 2016 just a little bit, he might have your vote.
No.
If Trump came out and said, we're going to build an interplanetary portal and the aliens will pay for it, I think he'd have your vote.
I've seen those alien pussies. I can't. My Trump's not.
They're not even worth grabbing. Trust me.
They're big. They're big. They're blown out. They want to pollute our bloodstream.
I know the best aliens.
Oh, yes. But you know what? They can suck a mean dick, so there is that. And they're really good at cleaning hotel rooms.
Cheap labor coming through the interdimensional portal.
I met one once with 3 titties, so that was cool.
It was like Total Recall, except without Arnold Schwarzenegger. Total loser, by the way.
Total loser, but he did help with my erection if he would have been there.
All right, so let's put a pin in the interdimensional beings talk for
whatever it is or whatever they are. But I don't know, the level of people that have come forward at the highest of their careers in the highest levels of government that have come forward. I, without a doubt, in things that I've personally experienced in my own life, nothing, that I would, but I've experienced a few things in my life that tell me that there's more to this reality than what we accept, what we're experiencing on a day-to-day level. So,
you're talking about butt play?
No, butt plays, I mean, day-to-day level?
The things I've experienced.
I mean, there's nothing wrong with a little
no one said there was
prostate massage. Just saying, it's not a routine thing. But
do you do this to yourself, or does Madison do this to you?
First of all, speaking hypothetically, correct?
Oh, sure. That's what.
Well, hypothetically,
that's the smoke screen you need.
Hypothetically speaking, then I guess with anything you first have an initial interest in, it would happen with yourself.
Self-exploration.
Yeah, I mean,
Are the aliens hiding in here? Tickle, tickle.
Hey, boys.
Like, stop poking us. All right, I wanted to get to one more thing before we wrap up this episode. Saw this girl. Name's Balin Dupree. Claims to have Tourette's. She's become a bit of a social media star because of this. Almost has 1 million followers on
How long till she has
Instagram.
an OnlyFans?
Good question. She is rocking some serious sweater meat.
I was just going to say, you were talking about her sweater meat before we came on here.
She good-looking girl. So she was recently on, we mentioned Chris Cuomo earlier. She was on his show. And I want to play this clip, and then we're going to have a little discussion about Tourette's, about things that perhaps we find humorous that others or society says no, that is not funny. Let me load this clip up. So
I just want to point out here that Joel still has not, he's been doing this for what going on. I mean, he's done podcasting off and on for like the last part of 6-8 years,
probably more like a decade now.
Okay, a decade. Yeah. He's still, there's very simply ways that he can like connect audio things in through his audio board to get them to sound correctly. But he is playing off of his very raggedy looking phone that is got literally duct tape and shit on it, residue.
That's gaffer tape, thank you.
Oh, gaffer tapes, pardon me.
Yeah.
On it to hold it together, and that's what he's going to play it through into his microphone, just so everyone, I just want to bring the audience here with us.
Procrastination.
Yeah, no shit.
All right, so here's her interview
it's probably a $5 cord, too.
On News Nation with Chris Cuomo. I defy you not to be entertained.
Famous. Do you believe that people are understanding better, or are they dopes like me who think you're acting? I say it's the same. I think there's a lot more people that don't understand what Tourette's is, and they like to educate themselves more. So I get thousands of DMs from parents, from teachers, from girls that have been diagnosed with Tourette's, and they've had to be kicked out of school for attention seeking because they rip up their homework or do things like that. I've had parents reach out to me asking me, oh, my son's coming home with a girlfriend and his girlfriend has Tourette's syndrome. So
She twitching.
And then I also get very evil people that would comment and say, like, go fuck yourself, Chris. Lick your baby ween and blame up your ass. Put your own biscuit, fat ass. That have told me that my parents deserved to die in a car accident because I'm faking my condition. Or people have told me that,
why go after
like, I had to have
parents?
the police at my house because people gave out my location and said they were going to come torch my house. Like, it's crazy.
We'll fix those Tourette's.
Here's the thing. Clinically, people suck. And they're mean,
Thanks, Chris.
and they're stupid, and they try to make themselves feel better by going after others. And you are the antidote, my young friend, because you have my kids.
She's flipping them off right
my
now.
Kids repeating your lines so that it's almost become cool, and not because it's raunchy. It's because you're being.
No, it's
Percent of people with Tourette's.
And that's the end of that particular clip. I don't know if I missed it or if it just wasn't in that clip, but there's a clip where she goes into a British accent and says, "Little baby wiener." So, okay.
Chris, I don't believe it. I think you're hung like quite the Italian stud you are.
So this is where it stemmed from. I saw this interview, and I'm sorry. I watched some of that, and I can't help. Like, I'm rolling with laughter watching
Well,
this.
Yeah, even Mr. Cuomo there couldn't get through it without dying laughing.
But I think...
which might have stemmed the little baby wiener comment.
So, wait, do you think she's faking it?
Here's the thing. We talked about this beforehand. I don't know a whole lot about Tourette's. And I've met a few people that have had medical diagnosis, in working of Tourette's in their background at work.
Woohoo, fuck you!
And the most thing I've ever experienced is either usually there's a tick or a twitch,
Right.
or there's sometimes like a word, like a fixation on a word that'll pop up.
Uh-huh.
I haven't even looked into Tourette syndrome, but I'm assuming a lot of it's psychological. I don't know for a fact, but in the case with her, so now my question became like, if that is the case, if it is a psychological issue, is that you subconsciously just letting loose every single thing that's in your mind at the time without being able to censor it? Because if that's the case, she's calling him, because he's laughing a little bit, and doesn't he admit in the interview that he doesn't believe her or something?
Yeah, at the very beginning, he says something about, are they dupes like me who think you're faking it?
Right. So, is that her subconscious, not her subconscious, but in the back of her mind being like, okay, you baby Dick Cuomo.
Yeah.
I don't know. It's amusing regardless. And if it's authentic though, and you're actually going through that, it must be torturous, especially when you're first meeting people and trying to explain that. Or could you imagine dating and you're just out on a date and you're like, how was your day? I want to suck your cock.
Like, well, all right, if that's how you're feeling.
How's your pork belly doing? Come on my face. That's got to put a real kink in the thing. Well, I don't know. You know what? I think you'd be better off as a female having it, because guys would they'd have an easier time accepting it.
Yeah, you'd
They're
be
like,
in jail.
oh.
Now, real quick, we only got a couple minutes left. You're in the medical profession. I'm sure there's got to be plenty of things that you encounter at work that are
yes.
fucking hilarious that you're not allowed to laugh at.
You're not allowed to laugh at,
you got to remove yourself from the room before you can acknowledge.
Yeah, I've become I'm a master at
Bader.
So yeah, most of the people that I work with would if we're just at the nursing desk, I have no filter. My life is a complete open book. I have hardly any secrets whatsoever, and almost everybody knows almost everything about me.
Like, he likes to have his prostate tickled by aliens.
Oh, people at work.
People at work have tried
it.
Not
define like it's happened a couple times. It's not exactly something that you just do on the nightly, especially when you got kids.
Has it worked?
Has what?
The prostate.
Oh, what do you
Jingle
mean?
jangling.
I mean, it definitely makes for an incredibly intense
You get to the
orgasm.
finale. Oh, it works. Huh?
Yeah. Well, I mean, like other things are going on. It's not like I'm just like, I don't know. This is a
Keep
topic
flicking
for
that prostate.
This is a topic for the conversation for another time.
Yeah, well,
my friend.
okay,
We
then
could have
we'll
a whole
put, we're gonna-
podcast
We're
on
going to
butt
put
play.
a pin in it, and we'll discuss it.
Ripcord.
We're going to have a little stubby episode we're going to work on here.
Yeah.
So if you guys want to get a hold of us, contribute to the show, you can do that. Just email vagrantsandvandals@gmail.com. That's vagrants, the letter N, vandals@gmail.com. We're out of time for today. We'll be back next week, of course. And remember, be you vagrant or be you vandal, all rascals and rogues, welcome here.